Greetings of the day. This is Dr. Sujata Magdum, Assistant Professor in Zoology, Department of Zoology, KTHM College, Nashik. I'll be dealing with biological chemistry. The code for this paper is ZY333 for TYBSc. Today we are going to begin our discussion from Unit 1, that is Basic Biochemistry, and in that I shall start with ionic bonds. Now these are the details of the Unit 1 wherein you will be understanding the bonds, that is various kinds of bonds like ionic, covalent, non-covalent, hydrogen, hydrophobic, electrostatic, van der Waals forces, which are type of non-covalent bond and their functions in different types of biomolecules. Then the second subunit includes structure of water, in which all the three different states of matter, that is solid, liquid and gaseous form of water molecule will be observed and studied. Followed by this, you will understand the physicochemical properties of water, then concepts of acid and bases, pH, Sorensen scale, derivation of Henderson-Hasselbalch equation and its application, and lastly, we will wind up with concept of buffer, different types of buffer, buffering capacities and buffers in biological system, and emphasis will be given on phosphate and bicarbonate buffers. Now, we'll start with a small part from first subtopic, that is bonds. You know that we are dealing with biological chemistry. Biological refers to the entity of living organism, and to correlate easily I have taken an example of human being, as you will be easily familiar with different concepts what I am going to discuss, because as humans will be taken as an example. Now you know that human body, it comprises of different types of organs like brain, heart, liver, stomach, intestine, then the reproductive organs, then urinogenital system and the respiratory unit, that is lungs. All these different types of organs which are present into the body of any multicellular organism is in turn made up of tissues, and you know that tissues are made up of the unitary substance or the unitary article that is called as the cell. Now this cell we always define as the structural and functional unit of life, because all the physiological activities what the organism is showing in detail are seen occurring at the micro level within the cell. Apart from that, whatever structure you can see with reference to a multicellular organism, the shape or the size, it is totally dependent on the different types of shapes and sizes which are shown by different cells into the body of organism. And all these cells what we are talking about, what we are considering, they are in turn made up of certain organic as well as inorganic substances. Now the organic substances which play an important role in construction of the cell are the protein molecules. Here the pictorial representation of proteins are been shown. Also there is involvement of different types of carbohydrates or the lipid molecules or the nucleic acid. So altogether we can say that proteins, carbohydrates, lipids as well as nucleic acid, they form an entity of the cell, and this entity enables the cell to perform its function at cellular level, right? So when we are talking about these different types of biomolecules, that is carbohydrate, proteins, lipid, nucleic acid, or in traces, vitamins and minerals, these are always seen as a larger molecule. Therefore, they are also called as macromolecules. So when you say molecule, molecule you know is an aggregation of atoms, right? And if I take you to the chemistry class, there you have understood that atoms are concerned with giving rise to formation of molecule with the help of binding. That means they should be linked together, and this linking between the atoms is called as the bond formation or the bonding. Now this bonds or bonding enables the different atoms to remain aggregated, and so it gives rise to formation of molecule. The same concept is applicable even into the living system, but here as we are concerned only and only with the organic molecules and some of inorganic substances, which we will consider little later. So we can say that these molecules, they are biomolecules, right? So to understand this entity or to understand the formation of bonding, we will revise the concepts of chemistry regarding the structure of atom. Here into the diagram you can see that the atom is consisting of centrally located nucleus which contains the protons as well as neutrons, and surrounding to the nucleus one can see presence of large number of electrons which are revolving around the nucleus into the orbits. There are three different orbits which are shown into the diagram, and these three different orbits, if I say from inner towards the outermost, the outer orbit is called as the valence shell. This valence shell, it includes the electrons which are moving into that orbit, specific orbit, and hence that particular electron will be defined as an valence electron. Whenever we are talking about bond formation, this valence electron, it plays an important role because it is directly involved either into gaining an electron from other atom or donating itself to another atom. And as a result of gaining or donating, we can say that there is temporary or permanent binding seen between the two different types of atoms, and that leads to formation of bond. Now with this concept, we can say that the outermost valence electron which is orbiting into the valence shell, it should always have an stable configuration, and this stable configuration is attained only if the valence shell, it contains 8 electrons into its composition. Now if 8 electrons are present into the valence shell, then we can say that it is showing the octet rule, or it is fulfilling the octet rule. Keeping this in mind, we will see the different types of elements here. The first element which I have taken into consideration is sodium. Here you can see that the spherical structure which is shown onto the top into maroon, it is defining the valence electron into the valence shell. So what does it show? It means that sodium, it shows presence of one single valence electron in its outermost shell. Obviously, it does not confirm the octet rule. Why? Because it contains only one single electron, whereas in case of outer shell, there should be 8 electrons seen. As a result, we can say that sodium, it becomes unstable, and this is shown pictorially onto the lower side, right? Now this lower region, what I am showing, it is just a pictorial representation of the element to show the happiness or unhappy feature. Unhappy feature means they are unstable. Happy feature refers to their stability. Now the second example of element which I have considered is of chlorine. Now here what you can see is there are 7 electrons into the outer shell or the valence shell. What does it mean? Again, it requires one electron to complete its outermost shell. because only 7 electrons are present. Hence, chlorine also is unstable or unhappy because its valence shell is incomplete. Whereas, one example from the noble gases, that is neon, I have considered, wherein you can see that the outer shell, it shows presence of 8 electrons. So, as it obeys the octet rule, so we can say that neon is a stable element, right? And that is why here there is no entry of any, there is no neither gain nor loss of an electron during the bond formation, right? Now, this is just to explain you the octet rule, how it is been defined into different organs. This concept is essential because as we are going to understand the ionic bond formation, you need to understand what is electron, what is valence shell, and how these valence shell they fulfill or they start obeying the octet rule so that there is formation of temporary or permanent bonding. To begin with our discussion on ionic bond, I'll take an example of two friends, Emily and Sarah. Now, this is an illustration which has been taken from Khan Academy. Now, consider that both of these friends, they are in an unfavorable situation, unfavorable conditions of winter, wherein Emily has a very warm blanket with her, and when that blanket is wrapped around her, she feels uncomfortable because of its warmthness. Whereas Sarah, she doesn't own any blanket, and because of the climatic condition, she is also feeling uncomfortable. So in this scenario, what should happen is this girl, that is Sarah, she needs the blanket to keep herself warm, whereas Emily, she wants to give away the blanket to overcome the sweating condition. So, by the mutual understanding, Emily, she gives or donates her blanket to Sarah, right? Now, here the picture which is shown towards the right, what you can see, both Emily as well as Sarah, they are in comfortable zone because Sarah is with blanket, so she is not feeling cold, whereas Emily, as she has donated her blanket to Sarah, even the sweating what she was experiencing is now been overcome, right? So what exactly here we can see, what I need to emphasize is there is donation of blanket to Sarah, and that is what exactly is seen occurring into the ionic bond formation, right? Now, with this small story, we shall take up the example of an elements which are usually seen into the living cell. The common elements which are present into the living cell are hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, sodium, magnesium, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine, potassium and calcium. Now, the first row what you can see here is showing the atomic number, whereas the other 4 rows are showing the electronic shell configuration. That is first shell, second, third and fourth. Now how do we say first, second, third and fourth? First is immediately next to the nucleus. Second is into the next to first. Likewise, the third as well as fourth shell. Now, the outermost shell will be defined as the valence shell. That is what I have spoken to you few minutes back, right? Now, let us consider two elements of our interest, that is sodium and chlorine. Now, sodium, it has 11 as its atomic number, whereas chlorine, it has 17 as its atomic number. So, the electrons which are distributed or the electronic configuration of sodium and chlorine, it can be seen into the diagram, wherein we can say the valence shell of sodium, it shows presence of one single electron, whereas the valence shell of the chlorine, it shows presence of 7 electrons. So in this scenario, both sodium as well as chlorine individually, they are unstable, because to complete the octet, sodium requires 7 electrons, whereas chlorine, it requires 1 electron. But then in nature, it is always seen that there should be minimal utilization of any component into its vicinity. Hence, instead of 7 electrons moving from chlorine towards sodium, it is much more easier for an sodium atom to donate its single electron. Therefore, in nature, sodium will be seen donating its single electron to the chlorine, so that chlorine will get satisfied, or its outer shell, it becomes completely filled by 8 electrons, and therefore it will fulfill the octet rule. In the same manner, sodium will also become stable, because its outer shell will now have 8 electrons which are seen into the second shell, right? So after attaining this stability, the structure of sodium will show 8 electrons into its second shell, whereas chlorine will also show presence of 8 electron in its third shell. Obviously, the third shell of chlorine, or the second shell of chlorine, I can say, is the valence shell now, right? Now, because of this condition, both sodium as well as chlorine is showing interaction with one another and leading to formation of a bond. There is donation of a single electron from sodium to chlorine, leading to formation of a bond that is called as an ionic bond. Now this leads to formation of crystals within the nature, and these crystals you can see towards extreme right of the diagram, and the arrangement of molecules of both sodium as well as chlorine, they are shown in green as well as yellow color. So you can see the compact nature which arises because of the ionic bond between the sodium and chlorine. It leads to formation of a crystalline nature, or it gives rise to a crystalline structure. And this exactly is what seen occurring even into the living system. Here I have just taken an example of sodium and chlorine, but any of the elements which are shown into the table can participate in the same manner, leading to either donating an electron or gaining an electron. Now the term what I have used here is sodium is losing its electron because it is giving electron to chlorine. Therefore, sodium is donating electron. Or if I want to speak with reference to chlorine, what I can say, chlorine is gaining an electron. So donation of electron leads to formation of ionic bond. As a result, there will be change in the positiveness or the negativeness within the vicinity of the nucleus, right? And that is what we are going to discuss into the next slide. Now this leads to, like as I said, that there is donation of electron or acceptance of electron or gaining of electron, and this donation or gaining will lead to formation of certain charges. Now why these charges will be formed? For that again you have to understand by the diagram which is shown in slide 1, wherein you can see that The nucleus, it contains neutrons and protons. Protons are always positively charged. Neutrons, they are neutral in nature, whereas electrons, they are negatively charged. So, keeping this in mind, I'll take two another examples to explain you what are cations and anions. If I consider the two biologically important elements like potassium and fluorine, I can say that potassium, as it has 19 as its atomic number, so the outer valence shell, it contains only one electron. So it is very easy for the potassium atom to donate one electron. So it is losing one of its electron which is negatively charged, right? So now as the electron is less, as a result, I can say that charge which is observed on this stable atom by donating an electron will contain more of positive charges of protons as compared to that of electrons, because you know that the number of protons and the number of electrons, they are always equal in any atom. As a result, now here, as the outer shell is losing one of its electron which is negatively charged, obviously the nucleus, as it contains the positive protons one exactly more as compared to that of the electrons in the atomic shell. So we can say that this potassium will now become positively charged because net charge of the atom will be positive, and hence this positively charged ion will be defined as K plus, and it is called as a cation. In the same way, if I consider an example of fluorine, fluorine you all know is component of both your bones and teeth, and this fluorine, it has the atomic number as 9. Now this fluorine, as it contains atomic number 9, the outer valence shell, it contains 7 electrons. So as I said few minutes back, it is easy to gain one electron rather than losing the large number of electrons. Hence, fluorine will always have the intensity of, or it has the capacity to attract the electron. As a result, it will gain the electron. So when there is gaining of electron, obviously 7 electrons will be added up with one more additional electron, and as now if you compare the number of protons and the electrons of the fluorine, we can say that the number of electron happens to be 8, whereas the number of protons in fluorine still remains 7. As there is one rise in the electron, we can say that the net charge will be negative. And so now the ion will be called as F minus, or it will be denoted as F minus, and this is called as an anion. Now here what is important to understand is whenever an atom donates an electron, it will be called as a cation. When an atom gains an electron, it will be called as an anion. Now this gaining or losing of electron is totally dependent on the valence electrons which are present into the valence shell. I hope this is very clear to you, and always remember that it is very easy to donate one single electron to the other atom containing large number of electrons into its valence shell, right? With this, I take your permission to stop the lecture, and tomorrow we shall start with covalent bonds. Thank you very much.